So welcome to the top challenges facing the SaaSOps community today. My name's Colin McCarthy, and it is my pleasure to be joining you today with three of my global colleagues as we discuss some of the topics that we've been thinking about for the last few months, years maybe. I'm the VP of Global IT for Essence. We're a data-centric, data-driven advertising agency, part of Group M, part of WPP. And this section is sort of spun off of our bi-weekly solve that we've been having. So as you know, there is the Better IT Slack community, which is now expanded to a larger online presence. If you watched David and Michael Stone's earlier presentation today. But from that Better IT Slack community, we created Solve. Solve stands for SaaSOps Life Virtual Event. One cold winter's day last December, I suggested if people wanted to jump online and have a chat. We did it the following week. Then somebody said, could you record this? And we said, sure. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, 15 episodes later, we have a regular attended show that we put out on the internet. And you can catch up on previous episodes at SaaSOps.life. So let me allow my friends, my colleagues to introduce themselves and say who they are, and then we'll get into our discussion points.
Hello, I'm Dominik Kugelmann. I'm the Chief of Vision of 22D Consulting. I am also a G Suite consultant and a G Suite professional collaboration engineer. So I do this SaaSOps thing on a day-to-day basis at the moment, yes.
I'm Alex McDonald. I work for Rayoneir. I'm the manager of IC security, and been working with G Suite for a very long time. I think I stumbled into Better IT Slack, just looking for answers or questions about other SaaS products, and found this, and it's been a great resource. I really appreciate the community they've built.
I'm Rose. I work for Strada Education Network, which is a nonprofit dedicated to economic and workforce development in the United States. I have been using G Suite for over a decade now, before it was known as G Suite, or now Google Workspace, I guess. And I've been adminning it for about 4 years now, along with a whole host of other best-in-breed SaaS tools.
Right, yes, because it was only a couple of weeks ago that we had that surprise announcement that G Suite was going to be rebranded to be Google Workspace. And this is actually the fourth name that I've been using this product under. It was Google Apps for Business, Google Apps for Work, G Suite, and now Google Workspace. I wonder what it will be in another 4 or 5 years' time. Who knows? Thank you for your introductions. This has been a very strange year for us, a very unusual year. So I wanted to know what has been your biggest challenge in regards to managing your organization or the organizations that you support, and how has that impacted how you think about SaaSOps?
So I would say for some of the organizations that I support, the transition to remote work wasn't the hardest part. I think the transition to dealing with the uncertainty of a global pandemic was infinitely harder. How do we get work done? And how do we enable our business to get work done when there's this huge kind of looming thing outside? For some of our organizations, like many people, they had to transition to working remotely, and we had a lot of the same problems that people have, right? Like supply chain issues on laptops was a big one for a minute. We had home internet problems where people, didn't have stable or reliable internet connections. They didn't have good places to work in their homes, right? Because they didn't normally work there. But yeah, so none of those problems, I will say, are completely resolved. Offices exist for a reason. People come into offices for a reason. So we'll just keep trucking on and try to get some work done in the crazy times.
We've unfortunately part of a department that's always prioritized a real DR plan, which includes VPN users. So it's more of a real life scenario where the entire company is no longer an office. So that like from an infrastructure side, that's been fairly smooth. But yeah, the user issues, trying to working with HR to make sure users are effective and comfortable working from home, and just shifting our processes to stop assuming we have physical access to an employer or anything really.
In Germany, because Alex, you've spoken about continuing to work, we never have any plans for any disasters, because what's happening here, we don't have storms, we don't have, we have nothing here that's really hard, and except maybe some intense rain every 10 years. So those plans just don't exist, because why would you need them if nothing ever happens? And then a pandemic hits. So a lot of work, a lot of back ordered webcams. I have placed an order for a customer for 500 webcams back in April. They are still not shipped. And Logitech just can't keep up. We're at just placed 23,000 now with our second order, and we don't know any time or date. So that's our biggest issue, to get this stuff that people would need, because laptops are not a thing here in Germany as well. So getting in video collaboration, especially for the larger companies, is really, really tough to get to. And internally, well, our company itself is entirely asynchronous. I wouldn't even call us remote, because that just means you work at different places, and every larger company has some remote parts. If as soon as you have a second office somewhere, you have to collaborate somewhat remotely at some point. But we're asynchronous, so well, when we have time, and we do a lot of our work in writing and in documents and documentation. So for us itself, the biggest impact was, how can we get our services either done faster, or instead of delivering trainings on site, do them online. But that were the biggest issues that we have. So not much for us changed, but for our German customers that are not startups, a lot of stuff was happening.
It's been very interesting to hear the sort of the hardware side has been the hardest part of 2020, as opposed to the sort of the logical SaaSOps side. For ourselves, for the first couple of weeks, when the lockdown happened, I was remotely supporting a remote support team, remotely supporting remote workers. And that, yes, and everything was just one step ahead. It was one step out of reach. So, the logistics of supply and demand and was very difficult. And some of the support things that would take a second to do, if you had access to the computer, was just so much more harder when you have to use some remote support tools. On the SaaSOps side, the one thing that we noticed was the increase in BYOD device usage. People weren't using their corporate device, so that the protecting of the identity and having controls around the identity, whether it's something like context-aware access in G Suite or some other form of MDM, mobile device management, was very important. And the other aspect of that has been policies and patch management. If you have a traditional Active Directory network and people are inside your network, you can push out policies and do updates, through the GPO, group policy object. If nobody's connecting into your network and you've got a Beyond Corp Zero Trust network and people aren't connecting to a VPN, they're not going to get those policies. So you have to look, at a different way of managing a device. And I think part of that SaaSOps side comes into, not only the user management account, but also the device as well. So now that we know some of the challenges that we've faced in 2020, what do you think is going to be done differently as we get towards the end of the year and move into 2021? How is this new normal just going to be normal? I expect to be working down here in the altitude galaxy for a long time to come. So what are your SaaSOps 2021 plans? What do you have in store?
We have everything on SaaS, and we put everything internally in SAML and SSO, and we actually pay extra pretty much all of our core tools. And for our customers, we are more and more looking into discovery. My users using, what are we using? What tools are we using? So, and how can we secure those? And if I don't know anything about those tools, I need to find out that. And that's our customer-focused approach right now.
So you're referring to something like Shadow IT?
Shadow IT or unsanctioned department IT. Yeah.
Well, I can say in 2020, like our organization is going to be working on getting rid of our last legacy program, our last on-prem program, which is not actually on-prem. Obviously, it's in the cloud, hosted by cloud server. And it has been a long time coming, and I'll be really excited to do that. It's not like part of COVID, obviously, like it's not part of the pandemic, it's not part of the new normal, but it is propped up by that because we've had a lot of issues with our on-prem stuff as we transitioned. We have some issues like with bandwidth and the VPNs a lot. We have some issues with people's Wi-Fi not supporting both our VPN and the VPN for the organization that they're native to. So we have some people using multiple VPNs, which is no bueno. And so getting rid of our final piece of like major legacy infrastructure is a huge deal. I mean, I would hope that most companies don't go back, no matter what happens. Infrastructure wise, I would hope that most companies don't just suddenly return to old school infrastructure. I think that SaaS, as it is proven during the pandemic, right? If you were ready and you were cloud first or moving to the cloud already, you were much more prepared for the pandemic's impact on your employees than organizations that weren't. And so I think my organization was already moving towards that. And so the pandemic happening kind of reinforced, and my team got a lot of kudos over the fact that like obviously this is what we've been working for the last few years, and so everybody can see that this is the benefit of what we're doing.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of horror stories about companies struggling to get everybody on their VPN because there is either a hardware cap or a license cap. Or an MFA cap, or a bandwidth cap, and when you only.
I got one solution.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Certainly, I think it will be a legacy term for 2021 and going forwards. Alex, what are your thoughts?
We're a much more traditional infrastructure, and we've been slowly moving things that we can to SaaS offerings, and really the only change is that it's cemented that was the right approach all along, and we can be more aggressive about it. yeah, I think the new normal is normal now. I don't really remember what it was like going to the office every day. I mean, I remember that it happened, but the experience of it is kind of lost on me now. So, like a lot of other workers out there, I'm sure there's an expectation that may not be required now, even post-pandemic, because we've seen that we can do this and I'm effective. So, yeah, I think what I'm interested in seeing is how companies react to that, and if they just allow that, if that's the way this candidate wants to work, then that's fine. And I think it opens up your talent pool a lot more than it restricts anything.
Yeah, it certainly is going to change that talent pool when there isn't not those geographic barriers to who you hire and how you operate. For us, for 2021, probably going to carry on with zero touch deployment, which has been a big thing with Microsoft's Autopilot and Jamf from on the Mac OS side, where you don't have to, have a machine shipped to your IT team, have them build it, and then give it to the end user. You can ship it directly to the end user. They log in with your account, and magically over the internet, it gets all the policies and procedures or policies and updates and programs that it needs, and configures itself that first time you log in. I think changes to how directories are done, on-premise Active Directory will be of a less of importance, and I think there'll be more of a drive towards things like Azure AD or Azure AD.
I would have another point.
You do, yes, Dominik.
I've noticed a lot of differences between the US and Europe, with Germany in specific. A lot of our customers are 80-90% back in the office. But allowing much more. Yes, I mean
that's because y'all handled the pandemic.
We have 2,500 cases per 100,000 people. It's basically zero. It's handled. We know we have a good app that works, so we handle it well. So, but we've noticed that a lot of our customers are much more interested in working hybrid. So a lot of investments is probably going to go in expensive meeting room hardware, for example, Logitech Meet kits or Zoom rooms. That's what we expect to actually turn up more and more orders now than before.
Yeah, there's been a lot of thoughts and discussions about office space becoming sort of showrooms and very elaborate meeting spaces, collaboration spaces, as opposed to a desk that you go and sit at for 8 hours and do your work.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last few months and with COVID have really accelerated how many organizations have adopted the cloud. As more companies become cloud first, cloud native, what do you think that impact will have on SaaSOps and also, more importantly, the SaaSOps skill set?
There's a lot more noise around SaaS offerings, and I expect there to be more products that are released because the market share has increased so rapidly. And a lot of the offerings weren't capable of keeping up with demand that we saw. I don't know what happens when the companies that were against any kind of cloud or SaaS offering are forced into the fray. I don't really know the insides of how that works post-pandemic, but I imagine they'll revert back when it's feasible.
A lot of the features that we wanted from a lot of these platforms have come out. For Google Meet, for example, has had huge developments in the last few months, and I know that has been spurred on by the need of the user base. And even, Dominik, you're talking about an Office 365 Teams account not being provisioned for 24 hours, maybe. That's actually still in the G Suite or Google Workplace workspace SLA, it can take up to 24 hours for a Google account to be fully provisioned. But normally it does take seconds. But if you do have a problem, they'll tell you it'll take up to 24 hours. The last question for today before we have to go is we all use different tools. Many of them we've discussed, and we've also all evaluated many more tools for our organization. So what do you think should be the one feature or features that should be standard in SaaSOps tools? I know this is a hot topic, and I know that probably one term is on Dominik's lips.
Command line interface. I just want everything in command line and API, yes.
Which requires the API, yeah.
I thought you were going to say SSO.
Well, that's Rose.
That was going to be mine.
She's the SSO truther. That's.
Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. SSO. I don't care if it's like I told you guys before. I don't care if it's SAML. I don't care if it's OAuth. Like just SSO something, and not at the like enterprise tier. Just put it in there.
Free
for an extra $5,000 consulting fee. Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep track. We have SAML or SSO, a command line for Dominik, who likes to do everything in the terminal.
Yeah.
The one I would like is export. I would like to export every report on every page to a CSV file. I really like CSV files. You can do an awful lot with them.
Or an API that lets you export to CSV.
Yeah, a command line interface.
Yeah. An API file, an API. Excellent. So they're the four things. If anybody is listening from a vendor, if anybody's thinking of being a vendor in 2021, they are the 4 or 5 things that we would really like, and I'm sure everybody would really like. If you want to join the conversation, you can join the new SaaSOps community. There'll be a link below, or here, or here, or here, or up there. You can click this button here. And like and subscribe, as they say. Do this.
And feel free to ask questions of any of us.
Yeah, come tell us that we're wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.